It was so normalized to just deal with stress, deal with trauma, deal with issues, and just be like, that's just the way life is, and keep going. And it's not until you become an adult when you realize, hey, that isn't normal for like someone who's 15 to deal with these things. There, that should be talked about. You should stop, take a beat, take a moment, and realize it's deeply affected you in a negative way. You need to work through it. I'm writing this actually for myself and my friends who grew up in a time where it was normalized to just deal with things and move on, as opposed to really nurturing and taking care of yourself. So
Just
yeah.
being the strong Black woman, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you happen to be in the world while you are watching this. I am Carla Renata, and I am here with Film Independent moderating a discussion around the BET Plus film Young, Wild, Free. And on the screen with me, I have its director and producer and writer, Miss Thembi Banks.
Hi.
I have Sierra Capri, who plays Cassidy.
Hello.
And Sanaa Lathan, who plays Janice.
Hi.
Hi, y'all. Okay, let's get right into it. So when I first met Thembi and Sierra, this was playing at the Sundance Film Festival. And you guys were so excited, and it found a home, which a lot of the films that play in the festivals usually don't find a home. There's a good portion of them that don't. So Thembi, could you just speak to the independent producers and directors that may be watching this feed about how you get something to go from Sundance to BET?
Yes, yes. We are very blessed and fortunate that we were able to find partners, but it was a long, arduous process in finding a home and making a deal and getting it on screen. And I think, one of the things that came out of the year that we were in at Sundance was the understanding that indie film is in a different place and space, and it's harder to find distributors, and it's just like a lot harder to be able to sell your very small niche story. It's not like years prior and past, and so there was a lot of uncertainty and a lot of back and forth and trying to figure it out. But I think it all boiled down to people really responding and liking and loving our film. We had a lot of interest from several people. And my financiers, Charles King at Macro and Tommy Oliver and Cody Oliver at Confluential, putting their heads together and really taking their time, which was painful for me because I'm a person that's like, let's go, let's go, let's get it, but really taking their time and figuring out what was going to be the best home for us. And so it took a while, and we just had to be patient, but we found some really great partners with BET Plus.
Oh, I was so happy to see that y'all found a home because, as you know, I'm a fan of the film and I'm a fan of all of you. So I was very elated to see that that had gone down. One of the themes of the film is mental illness. And as all of us know, being people of color, mental illness is a thing in the Black community. People don't like to talk about it, they don't like to acknowledge it, they don't really like to deal with it in any shape, form, or fashion. I would like all of you individually to talk about, excuse me, what putting mental illness on the screen in the cinemas and how the Black community is put in a situation where now they have to embrace it because they're seeing it on a screen and they're seeing it portrayed in a way that's not like, you got to get help, but it's portraying it in a lovely, warm fashion that I think people can relate to. And I'll start with Sanaa, especially with Janice, because Janice is, I think Janice may be a little bipolar as well as depressed. And so she's dealing with that, which makes her pull away from these kids. And it puts Algie's character, Brandon, in a position where he has to grow up far beyond his years. So if you could just speak to that for a second, Sanaa, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, I think I have, you know, unfortunately I have people in my family, people that loved ones as well as friends that have dealt with mental illness, I think, from what I understand, is that you can call somebody bipolar, you can call somebody schizophrenic, but it looks different with every person. Every brain is like a snowflake, like in how snowflakes are completely unique in and of themselves. There's no two snowflakes that are alike. Every brain is different. And what I've seen with people in my family, some very close, that have struggled with mental illness, they will give labels, but it may look different from this person to that person. So I think that was part of why we didn't really name necessarily what Janice was going through. Uh, and yeah, it is so pervasive with Black people, with Black women. I think that it is so important to destigmatize uh, what that is. I mean, we go to the gym for our bodies. That is something that is normalized. I want it to be normalized for us to do mental health work on ourselves, that, we don't have to keep it in. It is not something to be ashamed of. We can seek out help through therapy and normalize that. Everybody should have a therapist. Life is hard. Nobody escapes suffering, let alone people who have mental illness. So for me, I know how important images are. And, if somebody can see, their selves reflected in a character that I play, or that a movie that I'm a part of, and it normalizes it, takes away the shame, then to me, then we've done our job.
As the kids say, life be lifing.
It's so true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, so true.
Sierra, can you talk about Cassidy? Because Cassidy comes off originally as this very overconfident, fly girl. And then we see her kind of crumble as the time goes on. What was it like for you to portray that kind of a character? Because it's deep and it involves a lot of yourself having to go into that and to make it believable coming onto the screen, because it can sometimes people can do these types of roles and they can come off very contrived, but you did not.
Thank you so much for saying that. Well, it was definitely in part due to the script being amazing already, and just understanding what Thembi and the rest of the team wanted, and me really breaking down the character and figuring out what parts of my life and things that I've been through and things that I've seen in my community and growing up, what I can pull from. And if I'm someone going to see this film, and again, because mental illness in urban communities has been a taboo, we haven't really seen it displayed on screen in a way like this. So for me to be able to portray this character and to inspire people to get the help that they need, and to know that, like Sanai said, mental illness comes in all different facets. It's not just one thing. And there's also not just one way of dealing with it and handling it. People handle it in multiple different ways, whether that's good ways or bad ways. We see it all. So I think that just understanding that and understanding how complex the mind is, and I think I was able to show that throughout the film. She goes through so many, Cassidy, my character, she goes through so many different emotions and different ways of handling things that she's going through, even ways that people are like, what is this? Like, this is crazy. Or even ways where she's just laughing and it might not be anything to laugh about. Like, again, that's a way that a lot of people deal with things, just laughing it off. And especially, in urban communities. So I've seen things happen, and I think that I was able to use all of that to cultivate the performance. So
I love that. And Thembi, I just want you to speak to this from the creator standpoint. Why was it important for you to address this particular subject in this film? And I know you had a co-writer as well.
Yeah, so the script came to me from my really good friend who I met in film school, Joelle Taylor. And when I originally read it, I had this feeling as I was like, going through it page by page, that there was something more to unearth, and there was something more that we could put into it to speak to a larger issue, and it not just be for entertainment's sake, but that we could kind of like be digging underneath the surface to be saying something about what it is to be a young Black kid in America who has these mountains of issues and no outlet or way to deal with them, right? Because that existed, but I wanted to actually say something about it. And I pitched this idea that, this could actually have a turn or a twist that with delves into like the mental capacity of someone handling stress and like what that really looks like. And he was all for it, and he was like, I actually had a draft that had elements of that in it, and I took it out, but I would love for you to put it back in and explore it and play around with it. And so that's what I did. And so I set out on this journey to try to create a narrative that actually spoke to something that was meaningful to me, and I felt like to other people who grew up in a time where it was so normalized to just deal with stress, deal with trauma, deal with issues, and just be like, that's just the way life is, and keep going. And it's not until you become an adult when you realize, hey, that isn't normal for like someone who's 15 to deal with these things. That should be talked about. You should stop, take a beat, take a moment, and realize it's deeply affected you in a negative way. You need to work through it. You only realize that once you enter into this phase of being evolved and being able to talk to people and realize, like, other people, they stub their toe and they're in their therapist chair, like, help me, please, right? And you realize that you and your friends are dealing with 10 times worse, and you're just sitting there at your job like, hey girl, what's going on? Want to go out to eat? And it's like, hey, no, that's that's not exactly the way it should be. And so I just, that was the inspiration for me to for myself, realizing that I'm writing this actually for myself and my friends who grew up in a time where it was normalized to just deal with things and move on, as opposed to really nurturing and taking care of yourself. So
It's
yeah.
being the strong Black woman, right?
Yes, yes, yes. And we still
Yeah.
do it, we still do
Yeah.
it, but at least now we know, hey, I know I've been like just pushing through, but maybe I should take a moment.
It's okay to be vulnerable. It's
Yes.
okay to ask for help. It's
Yeah.
okay to be weak
Yeah.
sometimes. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? I think that
Mhm.
That part.
unconsciously we are taught. It's in our genes. It's in
Mhm.
our history of, what we had to go through in this country and what we still go through. We just, we've had to be so strong. But I think that the next step is admitting sometimes that, you need help.
Mhm. Yeah.
I love everything that you all said. I especially love, Sanaa, you comparing it to a snowflake. That
Mhm.
was such a beautiful analogy that
Oh,
I'll be
thank
stealing,
you,
and you can
darling.
from now on.
Yeah. Yeah.
I will be stealing that. I'm just letting you know to your face. I will be stealing that.
It's a
Me too.
great way to talk about it. Thank
That
you.
was a great analogy. Thank you. So thank all of you so much for sharing that. I really do appreciate it.
Mhm.
Thembi, I want to talk about the rehearsal process, because I understand that you do rehearsals for your films the same way we do in the theater. We rehearse to get, the performance and the chemistry to a certain place. And I want to talk to you particularly about rehearsing the scenes between Sanaa and Algie on those stoops. Because
Oh,
they were very intimate, those
you know
scenes.
what? Well, first off, I come from the theater world, and so I treasure and love and desire any bit of rehearsal time you can get. But as you know, with both TV and film, that's very rare to get that type of time
Yes.
with your actors. And so I was grateful that we did, have that time. I spent most of my rehearsal space with Algie and Sierra, just building chemistry. And so, it was less of let's go through these scenes and, read these lines. And it was more like, let's just live and breathe in this space. Let's dance, let's sing, let's create, moments and see how you guys react to each other in those moments, so that you guys can learn each other and we can learn ourselves. So it was a time for all three of us to get closer. With Sanan Algie, they were so beautiful to watch, and they didn't have rehearsal time really at all, believe it or not. And so what you saw in a lot of their scenes is them just coming together and being able to instantly connect and find places within each other to pull certain things out of each other. And I was just like a fan standing there watching them go.
See,
Well,
that would be
I
the
love
earmark of a true artist right there. That
Yeah.
is the earmark of true artists, where they can just come together and be in the moment and just let it all kind of tumble out. Right, Sanaa?
Yeah, well, I had just finished directing my own film, and then Best Man.
Right.
They overlapped, and I got COVID, and so
Mhm.
I when I got back to LA, I was I did we it was time. It was time to shoot. And so what I was exhausted. I there were days on the Best Man set that I could like barely stand because I went back to work too soon, just to, do the schedule.
Yeah.
But it was actually worked for Janice for me because Janice is tired.
Yes, she
I was like,
is.
I'm so
In
tired.
more ways than one.
I was like, could we please push my dates? And, obviously you can't do that. And so, for me, Algie is just he's such a fine, fine actor. And
Yeah.
so we didn't have much rehearsal. I mean, I always do my internal work, so that was done before I got to set. And he was just my son, and I was his mom, and we had all our that's the beauty of Thembi and the writing. She was so beautiful on set. It was great for me to watch after having, obviously I've been in the business for 30 years. I've seen all kinds of directors, but unfortunately, it has been, I can count on, three fingers how many Black women
Mm.
I've worked with as directors. And she really brought a confidence I'm a big believer that the director sets the tone for the set. And the set was just, it flowed. She had a very nurturing kind of motherly energy, and she kind of, just gently would nudge you in a direction. It was lovely working with her as a director, and I feel like, that kind of freed us up to have, even under the scheduling circumstances, to have, that kind of intimacy and vulnerability with each other. So
I love that. I love that. I'm going to shift gears and hit Miss Sierra real quick, because, of course, when I met you at Sundance, you were all fly with your little fashion. As you do. You all fly with your little fashion today, giving us the little Zendaya look. But
That's right.
I want to talk to you about how those stylish costumes contributed to the overall energy that you brought to Cassidy.
Oh my gosh. It was so much fun. It was so much fun working with the amazing team, hair, makeup, everyone, clothing, everything, that people were picking out and suggesting, and even Tembi's suggestions. She had amazing ideas, and I love it. She would just come in one day and be like, you know what, I got it. Why don't we try this? And then it would be something completely different from what we had originally. Even the pink fur coat, who would have imagined me walking in to to the convenience store with a pink bright fur big coat
And a
on
blinged out
and
ski mask.
a blinged out ski mask. It was giving. I never mind. I was gonna say she better have my money, but it was giving what it could give. So it was just so much fun, and we just had so much fun, even rehearsing it, rehearsing different things, and it was a really big part. It was a really big part, and it infused a lot of, I feel like, Cassidy's personality and things that we wanted to convey in the performance. I think it was definitely a big part of the movie. So it was one of my favorite parts.
And
That is so funny that you mentioned the fur coat in the store, because that really actually came from my New York sensibilities. Because in New York, sometimes when you go clubbing and when you go out, especially if like you don't have a lot of money or whatever, you're not gonna take like a cab or you're not driving. So you get on a subway, so you like walk to the corner store.
Right.
So there's so many days where I was witness to girls coming into the corner store to like buy some gum, and they're decked out, right? So
Right.
it's just like, where y'all going? And like, we about, and it's like 10 o'clock at night and they're about to get on the train and go to the club, and they're dressed for the club. And so I was just like, I love that aesthetic of seeing
Yes.
in the liquor
Uh,
store. like she's about to
Perfect.
go out. Yeah.
One of my
it. It was a great look for sure. Great look for sure. Thembi, talk to me about the musical choices, because the music kept the energy up throughout the film too, and kind of infused the characters to a certain extent. How did you come up with the musical choices?
Music is huge for me in anything that I do, and I always have champagne dreams, honey. Dear budget, okay? And so it requires me to work with a music supervisor who knows, lives, breathes, eats music, so that, you know, when I come to them with a Beyonce song, they can say, not that, but check this out, right? And I love discovering new songs, new artists. My husband is really great at that too. He suggested a few of the songs that were in there that landed. And so just discovering new people and new sounds is so important to me. And then being able to put them into the things that I do, the films and the projects that I work on, is just one of the highlights of the experience. I love that part of the process. And so it was just all about me from the very beginning. I like to create a playlist for any project I do. So I create a soundtrack where I just pull songs and I try to share them with everyone, the cast, the crew, so that we're all on the same page and we all have the vibe and they understand what I've been listening to and what's getting me in the mood to be in this world. And then a lot of those songs or likenesses of those songs will end up in the temp as we're going through the edit and sometimes in the final. And so, you know, that's just, you know, my process as far as just finding the sound of the cinema that I'm working on.
I love that. Before I go to Sierra with another question, you were talking and it reminded me of this. When you're doing indie film, especially in LA, I know that shooting on location can be challenging. And it can be very challenging. I want to know, how were you able to circumvent it with this particular film, or were you able to circumvent it at all?
Yes, you know, I love being Black. Let me tell you something, okay? Black people, when we get together and we go out in the community and we start talking and building together, it is just a magical thing. And so a lot of this was shot in South LA in, you know, Black neighborhoods. And we went out and found this one house owned by this woman named Miss Peggy, and she actually owned two houses on the block, one that she bought so that her elderly mother could live in, and then one that she was living in. And we used both of those houses. So one of the houses was for Janice and one of the houses was for Lamont. And so when we pointed that camera down the street, we said, make sure you don't pan over too far because we might see Lamont's house right there in the shot, you know? And so
Perfect.
it was
Not
beautiful.
Lamont.
Lamont's house was actually across the street, just a few
Yep.
feet from Janice's house, owned by the same Black woman who we grew to love and just was a part of our crew. And, you know, we're still in touch with her to this day. And so that was one of the ways that we were able to kind of build a sort of set and community, you know, in the locations that we were shooting in. And, you know, it was just pure indie filmmaking. So we just took the little bit of money that we had together and we started to come up with ideas on how to maximize and make the most of the resources and the things that we had. And so, you know, that's how we were able to make it happen.
One was
Great.
the trap.
Yeah. What'd you say?
What'd you say?
One was the trap.
Yes.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Okay, so because I'm running short on time, I'm going to close it with this question I love to ask y'all about this film. So, Miss Sierra, in the present, what makes you young, wild, and free?
In the present.
Hmm.
Ooh,
That's a good question.
that's a great question.
You can think about it, and then I'll go to Sanaa.
Okay.
Oh God. I was a little too young, wild, and free for a little too long. I
You,
kind of
we
had
don't
a late,
believe it, Sanaa.
I know, I
Together.
know, right. I had a, you know, because I was such a serious like student and I went to drama school and then I came straight into the business and just hustled for so long. And then I just went through like a work hard, play hard kind of phase, and
Yeah.
I had, but then it, it was playing a little too hard. So now I'm kind of just getting into trying to find the young, wild, free in every day, and that looks, that just looks like me doing all the things to keep my mental health together. For me, it's meditating, it's working out. Yes, I do go on and off with a therapist that I have, I have great friends, and the thing that I'm doing now, because we can be so focused on work, 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 work in this business, you feel like you're a hamster on a wheel, and it's always what's next, is to have more fun.
Mm.
Have, like, just every week, what am I doing for myself that's going to be just fun? And it's crazy that I even have to like carve that out. But you have to remind yourself, to live.
Yeah, we live in a very fast-paced world. So yeah, of
Yeah.
course you have to carve that out.
Mhm.
Okay, Sierra, it's your turn.
You want to know what's so funny? When Sanai said that she had her phase of like work hard, play hard, I was like, yes, that's where I am right
She's like,
now.
Good
yeah.
girl, that's good.
But that on top of, I think, just my peace. I think me having just peace of mind right now, it's really giving me a sense of freedom. So yes, I'm definitely that mixed with a little bit of work hard, play hard. That's
Cool. And we'll let Miss Thembi close it out. So, but from your perspective, you're a mom. So how
You stole my answer, honey. Like,
oh
because I feel like I have such a I was like, my answer is going to be so cliche, because before I had a child, and then people would just be like, what's your biggest inspiration? My kids. What keeps you going? My kids. What my kids. And I was like, your kids ain't doing all that. But now I totally get it. I'm in a rocky phase right now of life. I have a 3-year-old son, and he's out of his mind. And that 100% keeps me young, wild, free, because I'm tapping into parts of myself that I didn't know existed. And there's so much joy, there's so much like hard work, but then there's also, you see the world through a young person's eyes. And
Mm.
so you're like, oh my gosh, that is cool. Yes, let's stare at the moon. Oh my goodness.
That's good. I
He
love
loves
it.
staring at the moon. He is so connected to the moon. He loves staring at it. And, for a person who is very much like Sanaa, very much like every woman on this, who was like, I gotta work, to take a moment and stop and stare at the moon because your 3-year-old is like, look, look. I'm like, yes, it's amazing. I didn't know it. Thank you. So yeah.
That's so
oh my
sweet.
God,
love
that
that.
is the best answer ever. I need for you to
Love it.
write a comedy next, because that was friggin' hilarious.
He's so funny.
That's
I
hilarious.
need all the help. All the help. Send all the help over here, guys.
Well, y'all, believe it or not, we have run out of time. So I just want to thank once again the writer, producer, and director of Young Wild Free, Miss Thembi Banks,
Thank you.
the young lady who plays Miss Cassidy Sierra Capri,
Thank you.
and the other young lady who plays Janice, Sanaa Lathan, for joining me, your moderator, Carla Renata, for this discussion centered around Young, Wild, Free, which is streaming right now on BET+. Get yourself some life and watch it. Thank you so much for joining us, and have a nice day.